Hello and welcome along to another episode of the Tackling Sport podcast. It's Daniel here, joined alongside me as always by my brother Sean.
How's it going?
Not too bad, Sean. And we said we'd have a little bit of a review of Ireland, not just the game tonight, but Stephen Kenny's reign. I know we were both kind of trained at the moment. I only got the YouTube highlights myself, but nonetheless, a good result for Stephen Kenny going forward into what is a massive September when they have 3 live games.
Yeah, I think it's probably been a decent international window. Certainly with how a lot of players ended their season. A lot of players not on good club form. Think of some of the guys in the championships, and a couple of guys relegated with Sheffield United and West Brom. So I think for Stephen Kenny, it's probably the right time to get some sort of win and some sort of structure to it. And as I think he's kind of stumbled across, but he's kind of found 7 or 8 starters now going forward, which he didn't have, a month or two ago, and that's been because John Egan's missed games, Aaron Connolly's missed games, people like that, and I think now he's going to stumble across that midfield of Josh Cullen, Conor Hourihane. Whether Alan Brown comes back in there, I'm pretty sure he will do, but he's definitely got more starters now guaranteed, which I think is massive for him because we said for a couple of weeks after, a couple of times on the show under some of the early games, that there was just a very lack of structure to it, and ultimately he's got his first win as boss, which I think you can't. It probably came too late, obviously, but I think it's important that they won, and also the Hungary game to play in front of fans, 15,000 or whatever it was. I think that's important for those players as well, and I think that's why he had that little bit more experience, and brought Shane Duffy in, and I think 0 is a good result, and it just makes the Serbia game and the Azerbaijan game must wins if Ireland are to qualify. The Luxembourg game, look, we've shot ourselves in the foot. We're up against it, but you try and beat Serbia and try and beat Azerbaijan and create some sort of pressure on the teams in and around them.
Yeah, and I suppose, like, considering all the obstacles he's gone ahead, for him to get that win against Andorra, which that friendly was kind of there for, and a good result, like you said, in Hungary, kind of sets it up. Do you feel there's a bit of backing and patience with the way we're trying to play it? Because you look at that age profile, the Ireland starting 11 was like 25 in the World Cup, in the game against Andorra. Like, do you feel that there's enough backing from the fans? Because there was definitely the split after the Luxembourg game in terms of, are you Kenny in, are you Kenny out, are you going to have patience with the long game that might not necessarily get anywhere? Do you feel as fans we're prepared to put up with potentially not qualifying for another couple of tournaments before you see the fruition of what Kenny's trying to do, which is to bring lads through, like Troy Parrott, perfect example, at 19 years of age, to the senior setup?
Well, I'm not sure about a couple of tournaments, but certainly I think everyone will be of the understanding that the World Cup is gone, and we're going to probably be building towards the next Euros after that. I think what saved Kenny, I think, is the fact that it was Troy Parrott who saved him. I think if we won by a dodgy penalty decision or we just stumbled over the line, but I think it was the fact that the golden boy of the Kenny kids generation saved us. And I think, in fairness to Mick McCarthy, he gave him his debut. Him and Robbie Keane, and they obviously thought he'd something. But for him to stand up the way he did against Andorra, albeit against Andorra, I think probably gave people a lot more hope than if we just stumbled over the line, like I said. So definitely think we've seen improvements. I think for Stephen Kenny, if you're looking at some of those players, you want them guaranteed game time. Someone like Jason Malumbi, who's not playing with his club and is sitting on the bench for Ireland, having played a couple of times with Stephen Kenny and looked good. If you're not playing at club level, you have very little chance of getting picked. I think that's probably testament to Troy Parrott. His first loan in Millwall didn't really work well, although they spoke very highly of him. He went to Ipswich, had a manager change. Paul Lambert got sacked. Paul Cook came in, and it kind of worked for him. And he got a couple of goals, and he had that little bit more confidence and more game time and more exposure. And I think that's why Jason Knight has started, the last couple of games, because he's playing week in, week out for his club. I think that's so important. Adam Oida, look, he's going up to the Premier League. Narrative Timu Puki, who he won't dismantle straight away.
Do you think he's the type of player that needs to move, because he won't get his game in the Premier League, surely, with Norwich?
Yeah, it is one of them. It'll be a second season in the Premier League. I think I do think Norwich rate him really highly there. And Daniel Farke is not afraid to put him in almost as a second striker at times. And Norwich have lost Emi Wendy, and they might lose a couple more. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'd like to see him get more game time, maybe if he does go on loan. But it's one of them. I think for some of those players, Jason Lumby has to move on and find a deal. Even for someone like Queeveen Kelleher, you think maybe could he get a loan move? Liverpool's number 2 is a great job. You're training with the best of the best, but you do feel like if he's playing week in, week out, he could dethrone.
And I know the Irish management weren't too happy with him being number 2 in Liverpool, as opposed to they wanted him to go for that loan move last year. And I guess on that basis, Bazunu has kind of probably jumped ahead of him, like you said.
Yeah, and it is like that. You've got to play games for your club if you want to play for your country, really. And I think it'd be a big summer for a few of those players. Shane Duffy obviously being one. Look, everyone knows it didn't work out for Celtic. Could see him. He got man of the match tonight. I think he's someone who probably fed off the fans a little bit. I saw the clip the FAI put up of him giving his jersey to the couple of away fans, obviously Hungarian based or whatever. And very interested to see what happens. I was thinking during the week what club he could sign for. The ones that stand out are probably Cardiff with big Mick McCarthy, but they've already got 2 big centre halves there in Morrison and Aidan Flint. So I'm not sure if Big Mick wants another one, but I definitely think he'll move on from Brighton this year in the summer, and hopefully it's a good move for Shane Duffy, because you forget how good he is. Some of those performances he's put in for Ireland, the goals he scored. So I think it's very important that he gets a good move as well as others.
Yeah, I suppose. Well, last thing on Shane Duffy, do you think he suits Stephen Kenny's style of play? If you are trying to play out from the back, or is there always a need for a Shane Duffy in a team like Ireland?
Yeah, I think he played the Hungarian game tonight because of that, the crowd being there, and obviously they're going to the Euros. They were probably going to come out a bit more openly, and I think he probably just used his experience really tonight. And I think obviously John Egan can play in a back 5, Darragh O'Shea, Matt Doherty right wing back, and James McLean. So it's not like you're changing too many added parts. And definitely, he put in a shift tonight, and he's put in a performance, and hopefully that might just help him in the summer for a new club.
Yeah, a couple of comments in. Peter Punz here on Twitter saying Hungary had considerably more than one eye on the Euros, but it's an improvement from a very low bar. And I guess overall the performance, a couple of good saves from Keller in the second half, but I guess the improvement is there. But like we're saying, it's all about September really, and like there's very rare a team has had to do 3 World Cup qualifiers in a triple header in an international window. I know there's been triple headers already this season, but they usually involve maybe a friendly or maybe 3 Nation Leagues game. I suppose we probably, it's tough to play these 3 World Cup qualifiers. I think we're one of the few teams to have to do it because we're in a 5-team group, obviously, in this group.
I'm interested to see that the team for the Portugal game, or
what do
you do? Because obviously, if we are to maybe have a sneak of it, it could come down to goal difference. So, look, it's one of them. We could be playing the European champions in September. A lot of people fancy them to have a good crack at it. The small group doesn't help matters either. But I think if you're Stephen Kenny, you just want to get a few fans in the ground, and hopefully, from a coronavirus point of view, that Ireland will be able to have fans in the Aviva for some of those games. Certainly the Serbia game, because you do think if Ireland have any chance, it is to beat them. And I think with 10, maybe 15,000 in the Aviva, it might just give those players the extra lift. But for a lot of those players tonight, it was their first time playing an international game with fans, and I think that's all part of those guys under the age of 21. And obviously we didn't have a few players playing tonight, your Aaron Connolly's, Alan Browns and things like that. So hopefully you can just help them that little bit more.
Yeah, another comment there saying obviously with blessing, we've talked about this a lot on the podcast, being a blessing for Kenny there haven't been fans, and obviously we've seen that with Arteta and Arsenal and maybe Lampard and Chelsea, that dynamic. It's a completely different sport. Another comment just in terms of our goal scoring, Sean, as well. But do you want to take that up? Like, it's a completely different sport altogether when you have fans there, and you can sense, like the Aviva, for example, I do think there will be overall support for Kenny and what we're trying to do. But Jesus, I remember we were sitting watching Ireland Georgia again in 0-0. or maybe we won 1-0, but we were trying to pass out from the back, and I was kind of like going, and there was groans, and you were kind of telling me, look, if you do get a Stephen Kenny in, the fans have to be on board on that, and we've spent years just saying hoof it long and then give out about hoof and long, where it's very hard then to get behind an idea of just passing around the back. I would say though, when you don't have a Darren Randolph and you have no disrespect, you have a Gavin Bazunu who seems so comfortable, and Kelleher as well, so comfortable on the ball. I think that's a big part of it, because then the centre backs can kind of grow. But when your goalkeeper's not used to playing that way, then I guess that would happen a lot. But I do feel that you can build a team a way Kenny plays by a Gavin Bazunu or Kelleher, and I think these two goalkeepers are really, really, really good. Like really, really could potentially be really good goalkeepers for Ireland. And we've obviously been lucky with Shay Gibbon and Darren Randolph, but I think now these are the kind of goalkeepers that if we want to play and in 5-10 years time be able to have a certain style of play that you can build a team around, a Gavin Bazunu or a Kelleher. And just on Kelleher, maybe Sean, and maybe that style of play, Diarmuid McCabe asked, why isn't Kelleher number one? I personally would go for Bazunu. I don't know about you. I know Kelleher's probably had more experience, but I think Gavin Bazunu excites me, and I think I just don't think he really cares. If he makes a mistake, he'll get over it so quickly, and I just think he's a very admirable player to watch. He's just a brilliant player. I love watching.
Yeah, like it's probably personal choice, and you gotta think Stephen Kenny's seen something on the training pitch that maybe Bazunu is that a little bit better on the ball, and it's probably more of a risk playing Bazunu. It would make sense to play the Champions League goalkeeper or to play the Liverpool number 2. But no, I think you're right there with fans. I think people are going to see it quite openly in the European Championships, where a lot, obviously there's going to be fans in, but some grounds are going to have smaller numbers and bigger numbers than each other. And obviously we saw in Hungary tonight, full house, but I think you're really going to see that just the difference in intensity that some games have. Look, I think we've seen it towards the end of the season. Football without fans really is quite drab, and it doesn't help when you're trying to do something different. I do think if Kenny's first game, I just gone back, Dan, you were at a couple of under-21s games as well in Tallaght. Like the atmosphere there was absolutely brilliant, and I think it's 6,000 or 7,000 fans in on a Sunday at 5 o'clock, I think it was.
Sunday afternoon it was against Luxembourg, 2-0. I think.
Yeah,
I didn't think we were overall amazing.
But even you go and the Italy game and the atmosphere of that, and Iceland came as well, and so I do think that there is quite an appetite for it. But in another way, fans just want to have those moments out, World Cups and European Championships. But the Kenny, the Martin O'Neill era had gone stale at the end. There's no denying that. There was some great nights. The Mick McCarthy era really never took off. It's, I think with that style of football, it's you have to get real buy-in from the players, and I think in this day and age, when you're Bazunas, when you're Kelleher's, when your players like that are playing with the ball at club level, to ask them maybe to sit behind the ball all game, it's probably not going to happen. And we don't also have the pace or any sort of threat on the break. You go back to some of those teams we had, or you had a John Walters, like a top quality striker who could hold the ball up, or going back at Robbie Keane or Damien Duff or something like that, and we just probably don't have that at the moment. So I do think we gotta hold tight with this, and hopefully there's no guarantees. Obviously there's no guarantees for Stephen Kenny. He'll know that more than anyone. He'll know he's on a tightrope, and hopefully now in September we can get a couple of wins. I think that has to be the bare minimum, 2 wins.
Just on that topic, did you read Harry Arthur's quotes there over the weekend? I don't know if you had a chance to read them, but he essentially said, he compared, he basically said to get behind Stephen Kenny's project, he said he compared it to a Premier League style setup, and he also said that before his previous Irish camps had been a kind of let's get to know each other a bit more, let's have a few drinks, that sort of thing. These are all Harry Arthur's quotes, I think in the Times over the weekend, and it was very surprising to hear a current player speak so highly of his current manager, and also explain the differences. And he wasn't really having a slide on anything. He was just saying it was all about building character, and the Irish team overperformed, particularly in that Euros 2016, and how we were halfway there to beating France, who ended up being the world champions 2 years later. But it is interesting that Stephen Kenny is trying to bring a Premier League style. Now, whether we have the players good enough for that, and whether we want to play that way is another point. But yeah, to hear current question, Harry Arthur, who is in and out of the team and probably wouldn't start in Stephen Kenny's best team, and he's probably a little bit past the stage, he's not a young player, that sort of thing. For him to speak so highly of it, I guess, was a positive coming out of the Irish camp. And when you consider that there's been a lot of negatives coming out of the Irish camp since, various stories, and there've been a lot of coaching staff, and you do as a, as someone who would support what Stephen Kenny's trying to do, I would kind of be like, geez, what is really going on behind the scenes? But for those who haven't read it, I would look up Harry Arthur's quotes as an example of, there's a current player who's not really playing, but he has experience of other camps, and he's shown the differences of what Stephen Kenny's trying to do and the preparation that he's trying to bring to this Irish team.
And then he was also a big part of that Stephen Ward voice message. I don't know if you remember that Roy Keane was having a go at him, and he's had a go at him in the past. But I think that is because that's something that's been labelled at the Kenny regime, that he hasn't got buy-in from players. So obviously that's important to hear. But I think for many people, they just want to see it on the pitch. And there's been quite a few draws, and you just think if you can nick a few wins here and there and just keep momentum going. But like I said, September is a massive 3 games. You're right. It does seem a bit bizarre. It'd be interesting to see how he'll manage it as well. But that there's no real gimme in that either. Azerbaijan are kind of an up and coming team. Serbia, we know what they. We know firsthand what they can do, and obviously Portugal, like I said, could well be the European champions or European finalists again. Going to defend their crown, the current European holder. So, it's not an easy month, but I think if the Kenny era is to keep progressing or slowly build, I think that's a really important month.
Yeah, so we've got Portugal away, and then we've Azerbaijan at home, and then we've Serbia at home, all in the space of 6 days, which is. Yeah, like considering if you're in a 16 group, realistically, you're getting one of the bottom teams. But look, we'll kind of move on. I know we were talking about the Euros just here, and we were looking in the house here, and we were just saying, geez, it's mad we're not there. You know what I mean? When you see Wales, Scotland, and obviously England, and all the hype, and I don't think it hits you until you're kind of through all the first games. You're like, geez, Ireland aren't in there. Geez, we would have done all right. But I know the Near Post podcast here commented it there, saying was expected a bit more from Hungary there tonight. Not good signs from considering their groups. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the Euros overall, or it's going to be really exciting, I guess, with crowds, I think, which we've already touched on. But it's here. It's going to be on Friday, and I'll get to what we're doing for it in a minute. But just a little bit on the Euros, and obviously Ireland not being there, but I guess there's plenty to look forward to as well. 24 teams.
Like it in one way, it, could well not be a blessing. Obviously, you want to be at a European Championship, but where Ireland are, we're nowhere near that.
See that comment there, Sean, if you want to read that out.
Yeah, the Near Post podcast, Wales, Scotland, etc. levels above us, to be fair, in terms of quality of players they have, and you just have to look at Scotland's side, and it's Scott McTominay, John McGinn, Andy Robertson, Kieran Tierney. They're probably only a real goal scorer away from becoming a top team, or becoming that next level of side, a team that's consistently qualifying. And I'm sure they'll have their eyes on Qatar 2021, certainly if Che Adams can score goals for them. But if you were Ireland in that group that Hungary are in, with France, Germany and Portugal, you'd be asking probably to leave, or to get your flights changed, because it's absolute scandalous really for that group, for Hungary. And even if you look at England's group, England, Croatia, Czech Republic, who have really kind of had a renaissance in recent years, they've had a few really good results. Obviously, you just have to look at Souček and Sofala, West Ham, Slavia Prague, getting to the latter stages of the Europa League, and a whole heap of their players being from the Czech Republic. So there's a lot of kind of difficulties for some of those sides. Be interesting to see how Scotland get on, how Wales get on. But yeah, I think if you're Ireland, you're probably one way looking. Yeah, it's okay, we're missing it. Looking at some of the caliber of players, you think of that French front three, and you even look at the evolution of when we played them in 2016, when maybe you had Dimitri Payet, Mbappe was that bit younger. Obviously Griezmann, we all know, tore Ireland to shreds, but that France team has even gone up another level. And I think, obviously we'll be doing a lot more Euros talk, but this French team, I think, has probably gone under the radar. They got to a European final in 2016 as the host nation. They've won the World Cup, and they could really solidify themselves as an all-time great team. If you look at what, obviously Spain are one of the benchmarks in recent times, that Germany side in the World Cup, that won the World Cup getting to latter stages of competitions. Those players you could whittle off the top of your head playing. I think if France obviously do it, and just shows you how far away Ireland are from those top nations, and even further down to the Wales and Scotland, where Ireland beating the world champions at the Aviva Stadium. Do I think Ireland would get close to France now? No, I don't think many teams will get close to France. So we've definitely fallen off the face of a very large cliff, and we're slowly building ourselves back up that. But I think there's a long, long way if Ireland are to get back to challenging, and we definitely were overachieving. We were the third and fourth seeds in a lot of groups, and we were qualifying to get into playoffs and causing teams a lot of hassle. We took 4 points off the world champions, which is kind of mad thinking about that now, and we are quite a way off that now, and I think confidence is shattered. But hopefully, we get to September and a few more players have maybe moved club, and you've got a few more players playing week in, week out, and Stephen Kenny's got more options, and Aaron Connolly's fit, and Alan Brown's fit, and there's no more COVID or no more injuries, and we can start to find a way of competing against the top teams, because that Portugal game could very well be a drubbing if Stephen Kenny doesn't have his ideas in, or he doesn't have his team picked. Almost certainly we'll be playing 5 at the back, but it's going to be interesting to see what way he does it. Does Seamus Coleman play? Is Seamus Coleman week in, week out for Everton? What's happening with Matt Doherty at Spurs? Obviously, he's had a dreadful year. The whole really back five for Ireland this year has had quite a difficult year. That started tonight. You got Darragh O'Shea relegated, John Egan relegated. Both played pretty well at times this season. Obviously, Darragh O'Shea in his first year in the Prem. You Shane Duffy, who had a disaster at Celtic. James McLean, who had a in and out season with Stoke, a lot of injuries, and Matt Doherty at Tottenham. So we need to get to a place in September where West Brom have started the season well, and what happens with John Egan in the summer. Obviously, we don't know yet. Matt Doherty needs to play week in, week out. Shane Duffy or Coleman has to start, and all of a sudden you have one or two more options, and maybe Ryan Manning starting at Swansea, and he's in a left wing back. So we kind of need to get into that position, and that's probably not just with Kenny or the confidence of players. We just need to have better players, and players playing at a higher level, because Matt Doherty's playing in the highest place position of an Irish player, and he's not starting week in, week out, and they've played centre backs there instead of him. So we're in a really kind of depressing point of view, and we just need to find a way of winning games or competing in games even.
Yeah, a couple of comments. I know Peter Punts here has mentioned the 16 team and the Euros moved to 24 teams, and it kind of dilutes it. I have to say the first running of the 24 team, not just from an Ireland point of view, was incredible. But if you look at it on paper, like it is 24 teams, you play this massive group stage and you end up with 16 teams. It's a bit of, bordering on farcical. Although, have you seen the Copa America? I think at the moment they're looking at, 10 teams to reduce it to 8 teams from the group stage. So they can always be worse, I would say. But yeah, that first Euros from 2014 was pretty good. Based on I know there's an England point here from Peter, but moving on to maybe some of the teams, you mentioned France. I'll touch on them in a second. England are in a group with Croatia, Scotland, and Czech Republic. Again, you're looking at these top nations saying they should get through based on the best third place. How do you think England are set up going into the tournament? We spoke a lot about them in podcasts, about Gareth Southgate. He speaks very well, I think, in terms of like some of the kneeling stuff and some of the booing that's happened. It is a bit of a mad situation for England to come in off the back of their own fans booing them before kickoff. But how do you think they're set up overall? What do you think the squad Gareth Southgate picked, and can they go on and win a major tournament like the Euros, or is it coming a little bit too soon?
Yeah, hopefully it's not famous last words, but I think it could have come a little bit too soon. And probably what I mean by that is in 2018 they had everything go their way, absolutely everything go their way. Even back home in England, massive heat wave, everything, the feel-good factor around that England national team was there. The players, the Harry Kane and all these guys were just kind of coming through. You'd Gareth Southgate's waistcoats and all this kind of PR around it was good. Everything was rosy. You got a brilliant draw. They actually didn't even beat anyone in 90 minutes of use. They got Panama, Tunisia, they lost to Belgium twice, and everything just went their way. This time round, I think it's a lot of things have gone against them. Having two teams from the same nationality in the Champions League final is a massive no-no before a big major tournament, especially when you have a lot of players like Mount and Foden and Kyle Walker and John Stones, and England haven't. Gareth Southgate knows his best 11, but England they haven't played as England's best 11 for quite a while, which is a major kind of weakness. Obviously, if they win their group, they get that Group F that Hungary are in with France, Germany, and Portugal. So again, massive no at that. Looking, just at a bare look at it. So a lot of things have gone against England, and I also think this issue around race and obviously inequality and whether to kneel, and I think that's going to drag on. I think we even saw tonight in the Ireland game, 15,000 Hungarians booing Ireland players. Look, it's not gonna go away. This is going to happen throughout the tournament. We could
just the dynamic that it's played in all different countries as well. I don't know about anyone else. I keep forgetting. I keep thinking it's in England, but Turkey are playing Italy in the opening game, and everyone's like, "But sure, they're not hosting." But obviously, you know what I mean.
So I do think you could get to a stage where you have the final in Wembley, and there's people booing, people taking a stance against racial inequality. So I think that's a massive thing against England as well. I think that just doesn't help matters. But England's squad has improved immensely from that 2018. You look at some of the players that were in the squad in 2018. And then you look at the players that brought in: Bellingham, Rice, Grealish is in there, Phil Foden, Mason Mount. And it is a lot of their first tournaments, and it's a home tournament for them in many ways. They're going to play they're going to play games at Wembley. It's a massive opportunity for them, but I think it could well be just one tournament too early for England. And France just look extremely strong, and Portugal are growing. And if you're Cristiano Ronaldo, you're probably thinking this could well be, obviously what suits him is the World Cup comes flying around the corner in, 15 months next December. But the Euros does seem like a massive, because he's had a dip in club form, and a few of those players in Portugal are, Diaz and Fernandez, and he's probably looking around thinking, let's really compete.
They probably have a better team than their last Euros.
Yeah, exactly, and better quality of players.
Albeit, I think overall in Europe it's better, but that's just from memory. Maybe
you've got obviously Germany with Joachim Low going to be his last tournament, and been around forever really, it seems.
He loves it, doesn't he?
Yeah, so there's a lot more happening for England. Belgium,
just on England though. You took exception with Gary Neville's comment that Harry Maguire is England's most important player. I know there's a comment here from Peter saying for the strength of the squad there's still an over-reliance on Kane, but you believe that Gary Neville will be incorrect there, and it's Harry Kane by a mile. Yeah,
England go from being probably one of the favourites to being quarter-finalists without Harry Kane. I mean, he's everything about that England team. He just gives them something, and obviously the quality and the goals he scores, the assists he gets, but I wouldn't say that there'd be any chance of winning without someone like Harry Kane. Obviously, there's very little depth in that defending, but Harry Maguire's not a world-class defender. He's not an elite defender. He doesn't necessarily make other defenders better in that way. Look at him and Lindelof this year. He's not that kind of stature of a Van Dijk or a Diaz or someone like Sergio Ramos, obviously, who's not going, which is another topic to get into. But he just makes players better around. Those players make the team better, and I'm not necessarily sure Harry Maguire does that. So I definitely think without Kane, they've very little shot chance. If he stays fit, which he probably will, he'll probably get top goal scorer, golden boot, whether they win it or not. But even for a country like Belgium, you do think, how many more years is Hazard going to be at the top? And they've De Bruyne and Lukaku. Obviously, De Bruyne might miss a couple of games, Hazard might miss a couple of games, Courtois on goal. Very much Belgium have underachieved. They got the bronze in the World Cup. You from their point of view, you'd be thinking silver or gold this year for sure.
Any other teams to give a mention to? Like, I know Italy are strong. I think they're unbeaten in like 20-something games.
Mancini.
There's loads of good stuff, and I know it's a popular kind of thing. I've seen on people going Italy. Like there's some really. It's an open enough tournament, albeit like you're looking at France obviously and England being probably the favourites for the tournament. It's definitely open looking the Euros. Like just maybe I might just go to Group A: Turkey, Italy, Wales, Switzerland. Group B: Denmark, Finland, Belgium, Russia. Group C: Austria, North Macedonia now, Holland, Ukraine, Group D, England, Croatia, Scotland, Czech Republic. Group E, Poland, Slovakia, Spain, and Sweden. And Group F, Hungary, Portugal, France, and Germany. Because it's crept up on us, I almost you need reminding of the groups. But yeah, go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say about Italy. Obviously, they didn't qualify for the World Cup a couple of years ago, which was a massive shock. Very much like, the Dutch, great footballing country, and when you don't get to a tournament or you don't arrive and you're not there or thereabouts, I mean, you just get lynched. So for Italy, I think that whole situation with Donnarumma in goal, the young Milan keeper, I think that's probably not going to help them, but they certainly have a better squad than probably they did a couple of years ago. The Dutch, obviously, missing Van Dijk's a massive loss for them, as it is for Liverpool, as it would it be for any team in the world. But the big nations are very much going to be there or thereabouts. Obviously, a lot of people I've seen being kind of half fancying Denmark to give teams a real good go, and obviously Ireland know firsthand of some of the quality Denmark have, and it's probably more the structure of the team and how well they play together that is their biggest strength. But I think it's going to be. I don't think we're going to have any massive surprises. I don't think we're going to necessarily have a Greece or a that year Turkey got in 2008 and they got deep, and probably even Portugal 5 years ago, that real kind of surprise nature or a real shock. But you never know. I think also with the games being played in different cities, I think that just makes it awkward. I think it suits England when you don't have to travel as much and you're playing games. We've seen with Spain, obviously with COVID, how that has affected them massively. I think you just need to get lucky with injuries. You need to get lucky with COVID. But as it stands, I think it'd be foolish not to give France a real good show. You've obviously got Germany.
It's important. Just you mentioned England and hosting stuff. They win, they obviously have that tough draw with the group of death and playing the run up there. But if they come second in the group, they actually have to go to Copenhagen, and third they have to go to Budapest, or sorry, one of the other cities. So it just, even though they'll be kind of, like the last game, they kind of play the reserve team, happy enough to finish second with a softer draw, but you still want the Wembley game. Or do you want a Wembley game against someone really decent, or do you want to go to Copenhagen and play? I don't know. They have to play the run up of Group E if they, which is Poland, Slovakia, Spain, Sweden. So that's actually not a great draw either. Jesus, they have a really tough last 16 game, England, regardless, by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think, but also I think they've got to beat Croatia, to maybe put that round past them. I don't think Croatia, they're a brilliant tournament team, but
I watched them against who were they playing? Jesus, and the friendly, not France, Belgium. They played all right in the first 20 minutes against Belgium, and then Belgium was kind of, it was only the warm up game now, but Belgium kind of deserved the win after that.
You do think a few of those players have just got that extra year or two older, and some of these teams I don't think helps having that, playing in the Euro 2021. I think it probably does suit England in a way that they've had the breakthrough of Mount and Foden and some of these guys, and but for Croatia, I think it's probably a year past it. Luka Modric, 35, 36. You've got people like Mandzukic, Dejan Lovren, who had a brilliant World Cup. Rakitic. These are all just a year older, and they do have quite a few good clubs in obviously Dynamo Zagreb caused a massive shock against Spurs in the Europa League, and I think it's Orisic scored a hat-trick, and he may be a player to look out for. But yeah, I think maybe they could struggle. So I definitely see England winning that group. Whether they play, I think if you ask them now, they'd probably like to play Germany. I think they're definitely the weaker of the two, but lock 'em lows final Euros, I'm sure they'll be looking to give it a crack. But they've had a lot of issues off the pitch in recent years, with the likes of Ozil and Gundogan and things that's happened to them. But in fairness to Germany, you've got Timo Werner, Kai Havertz, Gundogan, all of pretty decent Premier League form in recent times. Obviously, this could well be the tournament that Werner explodes. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure what price he is for Golden Boot. But I think, I was reading a few different articles, a few different tweets that, sometimes you just get to a major tournament and someone just explodes off the scene. James Rodriguez, or, mad to think Diego Forlan was Golden Boot winner, and things like this happen. So, I think Timo Werner. I'm not sure what odds he is, but because he's obviously has pretty decent Germany form. I know he missed a sitter in that game as a Macedonia. But yeah, look, I think it could be.
Should be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like who you were kind of leading towards France here just before we go to our game and before we leave it for the night. You're leaning towards France as the winners.
Yeah, look, I don't think I'm, saying anything out of the ordinary, but I do think it's probably gone under the radar. France, lost in the final 5 years ago to Portugal, won a World Cup. So
compared to that Spain team is probably a good way of putting it.
I do think if they win this, they are very much at an elite level.
Kante, Pogba, Griezmann,
all these players. But the one thing I would say is if Hugo Lloris starts in goal, and obviously he's got an amazing form. Our French captain, one of the most capped players. But if he starts in goal, I mean, some of his performances for Spurs near the end of the season were really poor. And sometimes you think with those guys, they just put on a national team jersey and they might deliver.
World Cup final.
For them. Yeah, look,
it's obviously would be probably one of the biggest howlers ever if they lost the game, but obviously they won it.
But France, you even look at their midfield and some of the players they have and the front four, and you think they're so good that Laporte can play for Spain, which is just bonkers, really. And he could be a massive player for Spain. But having Benzema, Griezmann, Mbappe, you've got Pogba, Kante, Giroud coming off the bench, brilliant player for France. So yeah, it's got to be France, and I'm surprised they aren't shorter with a lot of bookmakers. Maybe it's because they might have to play England or someone, who knows. In the group, they're in a difficult group, but if this French team do it, they definitely get elevated to top heights, and it'd be scary if you're Kylian Mbappe to be a World Cup winner and a European Championship winner all at the age of 22, 23. That's why I think he's another level on someone like an Erling Haaland at the moment.
Yeah, I just see Portugal have it. Dan's 2018 bet coming in 3 years late from James in the comments. I presume that was Portugal. I backed Portugal to win the Euros 2016. I think you might get mixed up, but correct me if I'm wrong there in the comments. We're going to be looking at. Say again, Sean.
You did. You had Portugal to win it.
Yeah, in the Euro 16, or did I have them in the World Cup as well? But there's probably just as well. I didn't have a podcast.
Timo Werner 22-1, 5 places for top goal scorer.
I don't know. He'd break your heart, and I'm banging the Timo Werner drum since last June, and yeah. So we're basically going to kind of bring the Premier League predictions to Euro 2020 predictions, and instead of having a winner stays on, we're going to try and maybe have some sort of knockout tournament. The games are kind of. If we can maybe get a game, we can maybe 6-7 games and then get people on. So if anyone's interested in coming on for Euro 2020 predictions before finalise exactly what we're doing starting Thursday ahead of Friday's game, just get in touch with the show at Tackling Sport. Reach out to myself or Sean. Worst case, we'll draw numbers out of house so who can play. We'll bring the lads that bring the following basically, and we'll have a bit of crack with it, and we'll do some sort of prize for the winner as well. So Euro 2020 predictions, pretty similar to the Premier League predictions that's gone down well. Fan predictions, get a bit of crack. We'll be going live. We'll definitely be going live Thursday night and our Monday night shows. With the GAN stuff, we might squeeze in a third episode a week depending on how the tournament's going. But sorry to see James saying I'll be on James mode. It would be very hard to keep you off the show, James, but we'll see who else applies it. So yeah, let us know if you want to get involved with the show. As I said, we're going to do a lot of Euro 2020 coverage. Thursday night's the next time we're going to be live. Sean, looking forward to the tournament, I guess, Sean, before we move on to predictions. But yeah, you're looking forward to it. Is your strategy just watch every single game every 90 minutes? Are you just going to... No.
I always tend to never had that intention anyway. You always seem to might be training, or you might have a match and you might miss a couple of games, and definitely there's some I've earmarked. Definitely all the Scotland games. I'm kind of banging on the Scotland drum this year, and hopefully some good results and some just good games, because I think football needs that, and certainly with how everything's gone with COVID, and hopefully that we're not hearing in 2 weeks saying the tournament's got to be suspended, because that is, I'm sure they'll do everything in their power not to have that, but could well happen. And if it does, the UEFA will only have it to blame, because I think the notion of still having teams all in England, shouldn't it? Yeah. Or England, anyway. I think because of their vaccination rate, but anywhere really. But I think it's just classic UEFA, just money grab and all this. But hopefully, and there
hasn't been much heat about that. I guess people have I know I've forgotten about that, but like, yeah, you could be playing anywhere in the round of 16. You could be playing anywhere in the quarterfinal, anywhere in the semi-final.
And
London from then onwards, but
it doesn't even help fans either, because there's that
yeah, there's fans in
uncertainty.
these games. Yeah,
You could
Mhm.
have 2 flights booked or anything, whereas if you could base yourself on England for a few weeks with COVID or whatever, or the UK
Mm.
or in Germany, but as it's, the whole idea didn't really sit well at the start with me because of the whole idea with fans anyway. You could play in Copenhagen or you could play in Germany based on if you win a game, and fans aren't getting a good deal out of it. But obviously UEFA are the guardians of the game and they came out well of the ESL, but it's just,
That's
they could be
another
here
way
all
around.
night.
We will be here all night. So yeah, we'll be back for it will be some form of European Euro 2020 predictions on Thursday night. We'll be going live at 10 o'clock pretty much because I think the games are 8 o'clock. Let me see the kickoff. Yeah, the latest kickoff will be 8 o'clock in the Euro. So it'll be 10 o'clock and some of the big nights will try and go live as well. But yeah, that's all. At Tackling Sport, follow us. If you did enjoy the video, we'd really appreciate just liking the video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel would really mean a lot and would help us reach more people. But that's all that's left to say is goodbye from Sean.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from myself, and yeah, we'll chat you on Thursday night, and then after the next episode will be the Euros in Turkey, Italy on Friday night. But yeah, have a great week.